Whew, haven't made a video in so long, but that's okay because I don't know. It's 3 a.m. again. I really do need to find a consistent uploading schedule. But yeah, thanks y'all for 1,000 subscribers. I'll probably make a video celebrating that at some point, but now's not the time to talk about that. You clicked this video for the iPhone 13, so let's talk about the iPhone 13. I'm holding the box because I'm actually recording this video on the iPhone 13. This is the front-facing camera of the iPhone 13. Hello, and I'm using cinematic mode. Trying something new, you know? But yeah, if you're an average person looking to buy an iPhone in 2023, you might want to consider getting this one. Here's why. Let's take a moment to ask ourselves, what do we use our phones for? This is an iPhone. For. What do you care about in a phone? They're quite important little things. You use them for a lot of stuff. Take a moment, think about it. Feel free to pause the video if you want. I'm here all day. Alright, you're back. Your use case is going to be very different depending on who you are. The point is, phones have gotten to the point where whether or not it's good depends more on how it suits your use case and your preferences, rather than the raw quality of the product itself. We'll have our own definition of perfect. We all have our own needs. If my needs consist of wanting to take cool moon pictures, I'll obviously find the S23 Ultra more perfect for my needs than something like an iPhone 14 Pro. Well, that aged poorly now that people are saying Samsung is artificially enhancing moon photos on their phones. If I have tiny pockets and I want something that's super compact, obviously something like an Oppo Find N2 Flip, Samsung Galaxy Z Flip, or even an iPhone 13 mini would be more perfect for me than a Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. Doesn't mean one phone is better or worse than the other, it just comes down to preference. Or if I really want a small phone, I might just go for the iPhone 4. Look how cute it is. It's so small. My personal take, after using the iPhone 13 for about 6 months at this point, is that this is a safe phone. It's the best phone for the widest range of people. On the iPhone lineup, it's not priced to the point where you're sacrificing too much, like on the iPhone 12 and its mediocre battery life, but it's not so expensive and flashy to the point where you're unnecessarily paying too much for features the average person would never use, like Pro RAW photos on the iPhone 14 Pro. The iPhone 13 doesn't have any cool features like 100 times zoom, a dynamic island, or a folding screen that will blow you away, but it's a one-size-fits-all option that seems to get all the basics done. And it might be the best choice for most people simply because it gets the basics done so well, at least for me. It's the phone that provides the best value, at least in my opinion, on the iPhone lineup. So let's talk about the core things that make a phone, well, a phone. Hardware, screen, performance and software, camera, and battery. So let's begin. In terms of build quality, this is by no means a cheap phone. I mean, let's be honest, build quality doesn't matter a crazy amount since you're probably going to slap on an ugly rubber case anyway. I personally use the Spigen Mag Armor and it looks pretty nice and classy while offering some nice grip. Not sponsored, by the way. I just like the thing. It also has MagSafe compatibility, which we'll talk about in a bit. But this phone does not feel cheap at all. It's got a nice aluminum handrail, it's got a glossy back. One complaint I have is that the sexy midnight color does show fingerprints quite easily, but that does make sense. It's basically a black phone. Oh, I should also note that the midnight color is not actually black, although it might look like black. It's just a really, really dark blue, but especially if you hold it up to a light, you can tell that it's a nice dark blue. Honestly, probably one of my favorite colors of all time, because it adds a subtle touch to the boring classic black. But back to the point, we got a little off topic there, sorry. So yeah, glossy glass back, and then the camera bump has a matte texture to it, which is quite nice. One thing I like a lot about the iPhone 13 specifically is its size and weight, especially concerning the cameras. The cameras don't jut out a crazy amount compared to the other phones. iPhone 14 Pro series. It's there, but it's subtle. It's kind of nice. And the phone is nicely weighted, easy to hold in terms of weight. It's light enough such that it doesn't feel uncomfortable, like you have a brick in your pocket, but it's also not so light that it feels cheap, or that you won't be able to tell when it's in your pocket or not. Buttons are nice, clicky, and tactile, and the shut-up switch is always there as always. I love the shut-up switch. Thank you, shut-up switch, for being there for me always. You're a real one. Alright, let's talk about MagSafe. MagSafe is basically the system of magnets on iPhone, and it's really useful. It's different from Macbook MagSafe. Ignore Macbook MagSafe. You can use it to charge and add all sorts of different doodads to your phone. I mostly just use it for my wireless power bank and MagSafe wallet. It's not something you're exactly missing out on if you don't have it, but it is something that's nice to have, so it's cool that this phone does have it. Oopsies, I accidentally spilled something on my phone. Just kidding. The iPhone 13 is IP68 water and dust resistant. You can slap this sucker in 6 meters of water for up to 30 minutes and it'll be perfectly fine. I'm not saying you should do that with your phone though. It's meant as a safeguard only. Want a waterproof camera? Buy a waterproof camera, you cheap fuck. But yeah, it's just there in case your clumsy fingers drop the thing in water or snow if you're Canadian. All in all, solid build quality. I'm very satisfied with this phone's feel, weight, size. It's quite nice. Moving on to the bottom of the phone, we have speakers, a lightning port, and not much else, unfortunately. Now, the speakers on this phone are great. Don't get me wrong, we'll get to that later. But the lightning port, really, Apple? It's time to get rid of this obsolete port. Rumor has it that the iPhone 15 Pro will get USB-C, so if you really, really want an iPhone with USB-C, you should wait for when that releases in September, which is really stupid. But that's kind of your only option if you want USB-C on an iPhone. Or I guess you could be this guy and build your own. For me, it's not a huge deal because this phone does support wireless charging and I can kind of just plop it down wherever. But some people, they don't have wireless chargers. Just keep in mind that the iPhone 13, unlike literally every other phone out there, still has a lightning port instead of a USB-C port. Makes no sense to keep this port from a convenience perspective, but Apple keeps it there because it makes them a butt ton of money. And the other port related issue this phone has got to be the headphone jack. Or, well, the lack of one. You can't do that actually. Boom, there you go. The iPhone 13 doesn't have a headphone jack. You'll have to use Apple's stupid dongle or give them more money to buy their funny little beans. Now, this isn't as big of an issue as it was back in 2016, since most phone manufacturers have removed the headphone jack from their phones as well, but it's still present. And this is kind of annoying because, yes, wireless is nice, but they have their own issues like pairing and charging. Sometimes it's just nicer to go analog, and without a headphone jack, you don't really have the option to plug in your own headphones, unless, well, you use a headphone jack adapter, which isn't ideal. Most people do seem to have wireless earbuds now, but for those who don't, just be warned because there is no headphone jack on this phone. And also, yeah, my car, it's old. It don't got CarPlay, so I need to plug it in using an aux cable, and I have to just remember to bring a dongle every time. It's so fucking annoying. Moving on to the speakers, like I said, they're really good. There's a bottom speaker right here, and then the top earpiece also serves as a speaker, so that when you're watching a video in landscape, you're getting a stereo sound system. It's pretty cool. Here's a sound quality test. For day-to-day tasks like listening to music and watching YouTube, they're great, and they get quite loud. As for call quality, wow, feels like no one really talks about call quality in phone reviews anymore, eh? I have no complaints about that either. I can receive calls loud and clear. For those who are new to iPhones though, there is no call recording feature. It's really stupid. Alright, the screen. It's a very nice color accurate screen. It's OLED, so colors are sharp. Everything is sharp, actually. Black is actually black because the pixels basically turn off, which give you that true black. Here you can barely distinguish the notch and the black wallpaper I've set. Speaking of the notch, I don't like it. I wish it didn't need to exist. It doesn't get in the way, but it is kind of annoying. Face ID is pretty cool, but sometimes it doesn't work as fast if I don't have these glasses, and I wish this phone had the option for Touch ID. Like, just give us the option, Apple, please. Two other complaints I have regarding the screen on this device is the lack of an always-on display and a 120Hz refresh rate. Always on display I could care less about, but some people out there want it on their phones, so just a heads up, this phone don't have it. The other ick I have is the 60Hz refresh rate. If you don't know what that is, it won't matter to you, it won't affect you. But if you do know what it is, stay tuned. Because basically screens have a refresh rate which will determine how smooth the animations will play on the phone screen. Most phones these days have a 120Hz display, so they feel quite nice and smooth. Most iPhones don't have 120Hz, only the 13 Pro and the 14 Pro have it, and it's called ProMotion. So if you have an iPhone right now that isn't the 13 Pro or the 14 Pro, and you're fine with how it feels, how smooth it's like, you'll be fine with how the iPhone 13 feels. But if you're coming from a newer Android phone, it might take some getting used to. Not a deal breaker by any means, but it is a potential downside. As for the size, I used to think 6.1 inches was huge, and I stuck to the 4.7 inch iPhone SE, because to me, the iPhone 13 seemed like the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey. But it's actually really easy to hold with one hand. It's actually quite nice and compact. My hands aren't the smallest though, so I can handle 6 inches perfectly fine. Fun fact, the iPhone SE and the iPhone 13 are very similar in size, but the iPhone 13 has a much bigger screen just because it doesn't have those chunky bezels the iPhone SE has. Here they are side by side for comparison. Remember when 3.5 inches was considered huge?
A giant screen.
Now 6.1 inches is compact. How do I compete? How am I supposed to compete with that? Okay. I'm done making size jokes. Sorry. Overall, the screen itself is very solid, vibrant, and sharp. It gets bright enough for outdoor use, and the only potential downsides are the notch, also the lack of a 120Hz display. That's pretty much standard for all non-iPhone displays in 2023. It's a screen. It does what it needs to do. But how does the device perform? Well, the A15 is probably one of the most powerful smartphone chips in existence right now. Literally anything I throw at it, it can handle. Which is a good thing, of course. This phone will last you strong for many, many years to come. I don't think I found a single app that this phone can't handle. So, on the raw hardware performance side, I don't really have any complaints. The hardware is powerful enough. But the thing is, iOS 16 is just so poorly crafted that it doesn't even matter if the phone is super powerful. The software sometimes just bugs out, and while the phone is smooth most of the time, it does stutter. This isn't a problem with the phone itself, it's iOS in general. People have experienced problems like this with even the highest end iPhone 14 Pro Max. Sounds like an issue on your part, Apple. You might want to fix that. Now, all phones do have bugs and stutters, but you'll need to keep this in mind when you buy any iPhone in general. The media have kind of made Apple products seem like perfect, polished, beautiful products, and they're really not. They are cool devices, but they also have their flaws too. They're not perfect. Overall, raw hardware is quite powerful. The software experience is pretty good when it works, but there is a lot of room for growth. So Apple, counting on you to fix that. Thanks. The camera. Well, it's a camera. It doesn't have anything flashy like 100 times zoom, but it's really, really quite solid. I feel like at this price point, any mainstream consumer phone you buy will have a great camera, and taking great photos with it comes down more to the photographer's skill rather than the actual hardware itself. But everyone has different skill levels, so let's talk about the camera. Getting two lenses, a standard wide-angle lens and an ultra-wide lens. No telephoto lens, which is probably my main and only complaint about this camera. The only zoom you're getting here is digital, which means you'll lose out on quality fast because there's no separate optical zoom lens. The ultra-wide though, it's quite useful. Perfect for if you don't want to back up when taking photos, or if you're taking group shots and you're trying to fit every last person in. Ultra-wide is cool. Portrait mode works most of the time, and I think it does a pretty decent job at capturing my skin tone, which other phones, specifically Samsung, struggle to do. If you don't like the tone of the camera, you can adjust it with photographic styles, which are also pretty cool, although I do like the default camera look of the iPhone best, so I don't use that feature personally. Cinematic mode is this weird little thing. I'm actually using it right now to film this video with the front-facing camera, and basically it blurs out your background while focusing on the subject, and it's all AI processing, creating this depth of field. Pretty cool. It can look pretty good, like right now it looks fine, but sometimes it just completely freaks out. Why the f is cinematic mode not working? Oh well, it's fine. It's okay. Everything's fine. Woohoo. It's really hit or miss. You can't use the ultra-wide lens, you can't zoom in. It's just this weird, quirky feature that I don't really see a need for in real life, but it's pretty cool to play around with. You can also adjust the focus and post via the Apple Photos app, or through Apple video editing apps like Final Cut Pro, which is something you cannot do with a traditional camera. One other complaint I have with this camera is sometimes it feels like it kind of over-processes photos. Like I'll take a picture, open it in the Photos app, and I see it, then a second later it changes because the phone has done a bunch of post-processing, sharpening, making it more vibrant, reducing noise. I wouldn't have a problem with this if I could turn it off, but so far I have not found a way to do so. It's kind of sad. Night mode is pretty cool and quite useful. It's available on both the ultra-wide and the wide lens, which is really cool. The low light performance I have noticed is worse on the ultra-wide than on the wide lens, which makes sense. They're two different sensors, there's going to be a difference. Sometimes night mode is a real mess if you don't hold still. Like in this one image, my skin is red. Not great looking. But other times, it can do a really good job. In this photo, you can see the individual stars in the sky. Night mode photos do look heavily processed though, so keep that in mind. But it's quite useful, in my opinion. Overall, this camera is pretty great. It's nice and reliable. Things are sharp most of the time. It nails the basics. Right, so basically, yeah, front-facing camera, not bad. Yeah, pretty cool. Also, I love this place. Very nice, very peaceful. Birds are really cool. Trees are really cool. It's a very nice place, especially in the summer. I actually fell right there. But yeah, front-facing camera test and microphone test. Bye-bye. So, last but not least, battery life. The battery life in this phone is really solid. It's a pretty big jump from the iPhone 12. After half a year, the health has only gone down 2% and it can last me pretty much all day. However, if it's a day where I'm constantly on my phone the entire day, like if it's a weekend and I'm constantly procrastinating, the battery will drain before the end of the day. Overall though, I can get 5 to 6 hours, sometimes even 7 hours of screen on time with one full charge. More than enough for most people. Let's just ignore my really bad phone addiction here. But yeah, overall, battery life is solid. In terms of charging, it's not super fast, crazy charging, but it does support fast charging, and it seems to top up quite quickly, which is nice. Lightning does suck, but one of the biggest advantages of MagSafe is being able to connect a power bank without a chunky separate power bank attached by an annoying dangling cable. You can just snap on a little thing on the back and keep going. Nothing's in the way. So why should you choose the iPhone 13 specifically? Why not the 14? Well, the 14 does give you a plethora of upgrades over the 13. Obviously, if you have the 13 already, you shouldn't get the 14. And if you do have the 13, why are you watching this? But the choice may be less clear when you're given an option between the two. 13 or 14? It all comes down to this. Is it worth it for you to spend an extra $100 on the upgrades that the 14 brings to the table? You're getting a very slightly better camera setup with autofocus on the selfie camera and improved low light performance. You're also getting action mode video stabilization. You're getting the same chip that's in the iPhone 13, but you're also getting an extra GPU core in that chip, which will help in terms of performance. Along with that, it also has 2 more gigabytes of RAM, again boosting the performance. The extra RAM doesn't make a huge difference right now. iOS runs fine on 4 gigs of RAM that the 13 has. However, there's no telling whether or not this will make a difference in the future. We'll just have to wait and see. There's also features like car crash detection and emergency SOS, and yeah, more color choices, I guess. And yeah, yellow, woohoo, yellow, yeah. And yeah, that's it. I'm out of new things to say. But if you care enough about those features to pay an extra $100 for them, then go ahead, get the 14. For most average consumers though, it's not worth it. It won't really make a difference in your experience and you'll be just as happy with the 13. All in all, this is a solid phone that gets all the basics done right. I'd say if you're coming from an iPhone 11 or older, you'd be pretty happy with what this little guy has to offer. If you're coming from an Android phone, it might take some getting used to, but overall, it's a solid, reliable, well-rounded phone that meets most people's needs. Battery life to last all day, a reliable camera, a sharp display, even if it is only 60 Hz, and great performance. The phone still looks very sharp and modern, and the design is pretty much unchanged from the newest iPhone 14. Overall, it's the perfect balance of an iPhone. There's nothing flashy or cool about the iPhone 13, and that's okay. Phones are tools, not toys, and this phone does that job very well. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks again for 1,000 subscribers. I'll probably make a video celebrating that, but if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. And if you didn't, well, sucks to suck. Just kidding. But if you didn't enjoy the video, I'm always open to feedback down in the comment section below. Let me know what I should improve on. Thank you. All right, you're cool. Stay awesome and rock on. Bye-bye. An airplane. Yep, she's recording. Oh, I'm not even wearing my fucking watch. Okay, that's okay. Cupid! What just happened? Okay, it's fine. We're good. What time is it? Oh shit, it's 4. But how does... If you don't like the tone of the camera, you can adjust it with you can't... And then insert like for the background music here, do like a really shitty parody of Something in the Way and be like, nothing's in the way. Ooh. Ooh. Oh shit. And it's 12 in the morning and I have this pizza that my oven didn't even cook properly. It's like half burnt and half raw. It's 4 in the morning. Actually, that's a little ahead. That's a little ahead. It's actually 4:06. Oh my god, 0 day. I've been fucking editing this 20-minute long video since, oh my god, it's literally my largest project ever by like 5 seconds. Oh my god, that is fucking wild. And my AirPods, they were pretty much fully charged when I started using them. They're at 13 and 9%. So I'm just gonna take them out. Hopefully it doesn't get a copyright strike when I upload it, because I'll be really mad if it does. Okay, bye-bye.